Thank you, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on whose land we meet today, the Larrakia people, and pay respects to elders and leaders, both past, present and future generations. As Ed said, I'm the new Indigenous engagement, new partnership, Indigenous Partnerships Coordinator. I had a name change, sorry about that. So I've been in my role for the last 5 months. So hopefully next month I'll pass my probation and I'll be here longer. So if we were in a normal Indigenous setting out on community, I would say, I would like you to introduce yourself to me. So I think we should do that. So I will start with you. If you could just tell me your name and where you're from.
I'm Matt Madden from the Quarry Health Unit, Department 1.
David Wise, I do a little bit of work here at uni.
I'm Jeff Young from AMES.
Yeah.
Benary Aura from AMES as well.
Jackie Gould from AMES and Northern Institute.
Tim McDonald from Northern Institute and Reading.
Ian Hutton, working for NAILSMA.
Mark Rupert, working for NZ Fisheries.
Yeah.
And Ed from AMES.
Yes.
Tasha Stacey from Real at the CDU.
James White from Aquatic Health.
Thank you.
Raj Clark from Northern Hub.
Chris McCullough from Real CDU.
Linda Chaplin from the Collective Nursing Midwifery.
Oh, very good.
Kim Hunnam from Real. Pia Hartmouth from Real.
Joel Liu from Bachelor Institute.
Jamie Craig, I work with Water Rangers and
Liza Shankle, Water Resources. Friday Valley Law, Water Resources.
No worries. Well, thank you for that. I think it's a little bit intimidating when you're standing at the front and everyone's looking at you and you don't really know who you're speaking to. So I'm glad that we're able to introduce ourselves to one another. So today I will introduce myself. I'll also talk about my family, which is the Lama Lama people of Cape York. I'll talk about the Indigenous engagement plan and also the AMES strategy, and then engaging with traditional owners, and then I think what expectations we as traditional owners have on research people and people who visit our communities. So on my mother's side, the top place is Port Stewart, and that's the Lama Lama people. That's called Princess Charlotte Bay. The bottom part is my father's country. My father's people, they're the Ngawagi people. They're from Inyam. That's a picture of my family. I have 2 sons and 2 daughters and a husband, and we're all looking the same at that day because we were celebrating our 10th anniversary of our national park, which was earlier this year in July. So Lama Lama was the first national park, jointly managed national park in Queensland. So we were really proud of that. So we had a memorial shirt made for the day. So that's us. So Lama Lama people, we live in Princess Charlotte Bay. We're one clan group, which is made up of 8 families, and that's really unusual. Normally, nations are made up of a lot of clan groups that all live together, and so it's unusual for you to have one clan which is made up of 8 families. So I don't actually know of any other place that has that, so it's really rare. So when you go to the community, you might be talking to a whole level or like a whole number of clans instead of just like just one clan like we are. We have a ranger group which has about 15 rangers, but many casual rangers. And so the top line is Massey River, and we go down to what we call Normanby River on our country. Also takes up sea country as well. I'd like to say that we're a strong independent clan, and we're proud of our culture and our families and our community, and we're especially proud of the work that we do on country to keep ourselves and our country strong. So yeah. So because we're a ranger group predominantly, in terms of the paid work that we do, we have the Lama Lama Rangers and we have the Lama Lama Junior Rangers. So the top picture is of a Lama Lama Ranger talking to the Junior Rangers. Our Junior Ranger program is based on whatever the big rangers are doing. So if the big rangers are doing bird surveys, then the Junior Rangers are doing bird surveys. So we kind of gear it up so that there's, like the Junior Rangers can see that for caring for country, there's a path. And so we start them when they're quite young. So by the time they get to be a Lama Lama Ranger, they have a lot of training already done that we've done through our program. So the Rangers do water quality monitoring, weed and feral animal management, fire management. We do marine debris cleanup, and I just heard from Timaru Rangers that they spend like 50% of the time doing marine debris cleanup. So we do like 1 or 2 days a year. So we don't have any marine debris problems, not like they do. And I just couldn't imagine as a range group spending 50% of your time doing marine debris cleanup. So that was something that blew my mind, So yeah. We do cultural heritage protection, visitor management, community development research, and we have tourism and cattle enterprises on our country. So yeah. So that's my brother over here. We call him Super Ranger because he seems like he's a one-man ranger team. So yeah, he's pretty funny. So Lama Lama governance, our elders are very strong. We do all our work through them and they guide us. And pretty much if the elders are on port with what we're doing, then we do it. If they don't, we don't do it. So they're very strong with us. We also have the Lama Lama Land Trust, which our women are very strong. So we have 8 positions and 7 of them are from women. So yeah, so my nephew is the token male, if you could say like that. And because of the hierarchy of Aboriginal society, he kind of, has a little bit of say, but not really. So the Land Trust looks after it looks after the land and the sea and the people. So we have 300,000 hectares of land. And so whatever the Land Trust tells us to do, that's what we do. The Njinga Aboriginal Corporation is the business arm of what we do. So it's a homelands-based, not-for-profit organisation and is the business arm. It looks at improving social, cultural, environmental and economic well-being of our people, and it manages projects on behalf of the Land Trust. And then the Lama Lama Tamra. Tamra is an acronym for Traditional Use of Marine Resources Agreement, and it is a partnership between the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority and also Queensland Parks and Wildlife Services and us as Lama Lama people. So, so we have about 2,500 kilometres of sea country, squared kilometres of sea country. And the Tamra steering committee, it has 3 elders, 3 Lama Lama reps, which I call midlifers. So you have the elders, the midlifers, and then we have 3 youths. We have the chair of the Land Trust, chair of the Aboriginal Corporation, the Tamra coordinator, and that was my former position up home. So I used to look after the sea country planning and our cultural officer. So over the years, Lama Lama people worked on some research collaborations, but it was mostly what researchers wanted to do with us. So the Tamra committee decided back in 2006 that we wanted to produce a non-Indigenous engagement strategy for us. So that was the strategy that we worked on to engage people like yourselves to help us do our business on country and do research work that was a priority for us. And I think that's been a little bit hard and sometimes, because sometimes you don't have researchers wanting to do what you wanted to do. but we kind of like grab researchers and we'll say, oh, if we'll let you do this research as long as you help us do this one. So we're doing trade-offs. So yeah. So that's Llama Llama. So the next part would be about the AIM strategy, which is going to be up to the 2025. So AIMS has offices in Townsville, Brisbane, I don't know why I said that, Townsville, Darwin and Perth. So my region that I look after is over Northern Australia. So look after from Exmouth in Western Australia, on top of Northern Australia and then down to Gladstone-Bundaberg area. So it's a very big spot, you know. Australia's a very big country. So a lot of things that AIMS wants to do is build partnerships with people. And, you know, and also a part of my job is to, you know, meet with other institutions and agencies to build partnerships for us. And also, you know, make that connection between agencies and traditional owners that have work that they want done on sea country. So that's what I'll be doing over the next few years if I pass probation. So yeah. So the way we work, so these are the values that AIMS is looking at, and I think the main one we would look at is cooperation today. So together we create impact, but the other values are just important, you know, and it all goes into the work that AIMS is doing in terms of their science. So it's really important to have a firm foundation for this kind of thing, you know, as an organisation. So AIMS wants to work with traditional owners to create new shared research and integrate Indigenous knowledge on sea country. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to build the capacity of our staff so that all our staff members hopefully would be able to build partnership with TO and deliver research outputs. And we're also going to take traditional ecological knowledge and other sciences and create a greater understanding of our marine environment and share this knowledge to the greater community if all the parties agree. So, you know, that's what our hope is. We have targets. The one that applies to me is this EC3, which is having science collaborations with traditional owners in key projects focused on sea country. So, as you know, like everywhere we go in around Australia now, sea country, it is owned or managed by traditional owners. So we have to start building those relationships with traditional owners. So before our new strategy came out, we had an engagement. It was called an engagement strategy, but our CAO is only saying we have one strategy, so this is now a plan. So it had 6 parts to it, and today I'll just talk about these ones: collaboration and building partnerships. So AIM staff will build relationships with TOs. One of my jobs is to build a list of organisations and anything to do with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, like corporations, like their PBCs, their native title things, and put it into a document that our staff can access, you know, so that they have a better understanding of who they need to speak to. Communication through the staff, going back and forth. We will support land and sea events, so any sea country forums and that kind of thing that have traditional owners involved, we will support that in whichever way, whether that's financial or people or resources. Promote AIMS with other communities. In the Indigenous world, AIMS is not very well known, so I think one of my major roles over the next few months is to, you know, brings AIMS profile up in the Indigenous communities. So yeah, foster new relationships, ensure that traditional owners are welcome to come to our offices and to other events that we're hoping, so that they are they're welcome, because we want them to be involved with our business. Have communication products that are appropriate, develop best standards, and establish an image library. I'll probably have to work with our people a little bit more about that one, because I think image is a touchy subject in the Indigenous world, and one thing is that, if you take a picture of a person and they pass away, that's the main thing. So at the moment we have open-ended consent for images, and I think that we probably just need to, shorten down that consent period so that it lasts for a short time, and then if we need to use the image again, we go back to the community person or the organisation and ask for permission again, because things might have changed. So, so that's one of the things that I think we need to work on at AMES. So these ones are all about, having collaborations with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, so we need to incorporate our aspirations, priorities for our sea country. We would like to include traditional owners in fieldwork that AMES is doing, and in our partnership with other people as well. Acknowledge the contribution of traditional owners. Work with TOs to develop, implement joint proposals and projects, and develop the capacity of TOs through training and assessment stuff, where possible, Jackie went with me to, or I went with her really, to Bali Jawi country just couple of months ago, and she did participatory mapping with the traditional owners, and so it was a skill that she's helping to help the traditional owners to look after their sea country, and it was a really good project to be involved with, watching a professional, So thank you, Jackie. So AMES Progress so far, they've employed the Indigenous Partnerships Coordinator, which is me. We've been working hard to, continue building up the existing partnerships that we've had. We've had made inroads into new traditional owner groups to build capacity and training, and have a research relationship with them as well. We've invited a lot of traditional owners to come to our Townsville site and have a look around. I'm not sure if everyone knows, but we have what we call the National Sea Simulator at AMES. So a lot of people like to look at that. It grows corals, and people do research there, and has lovely fish and whatnot. So it's a good thing for TOs to come and have a look at. We have, this shirt is from having Australian and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids come through a science program, like STEM program. So it's called Atsims, and then we're incorporating traditional owners more into our reporting levels at work. So we're trying to integrate traditional owners a lot more than what we had done in the past. So now that we had all that AIM stuff and Lama Lama stuff, we'll talk about working with traditional owners. So in my way of thinking, you have a pre-engagement phase, you have the community visit or communication, and then you have the post-engagement. So there are three distinct processes. So I think, like in terms of what we're doing today, I will look at each one of these, like in each stage. So researchers' work, I feel that researchers should contact traditional owners. But before they do it, they need to get in their head what it is that they want to speak to the traditional owners about. So I think, researchers are really excited about their work. They really want to come out, they want to do a good job, they want to engage people and all that. And then, you came, so I would like them to contact the community first, and then, you pick up the phone or whatnot, and then you say, hi, I'm doing research work on such and such and such, And I think we need to see, is it relevant to traditional owners, And when you call up, you know, you have to have the concept in your head about what you're going to say, whether it's over the phone or in an email or something like that, you know. Because if you know, I think scientific people tend to be scientific, you know, so what they're sending people is maybe at this level, but it needs to be at this level. So I think it needs to be at layman's term, you know, like an average person off the street, if you had to talk to them, would they understand what you're saying? You know, so that's really important. So the concept and the message is really important. And I think that a lot of researchers may or may not know that there's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander units on each university normally. So I think they're a good resource that people should use in terms of, you know, talking to them about, you know, who to talk to, you know, how's the best way to engage, that kind of thing. So the traditional owners, there's different like ways that traditional owners can be incorporated. So some TOs are under, they have a local government function, so like Tiwi Islands, Land Council and that, you know, they have a local government function. PBCs are prescribed body corporates, and they're usually the land trusts and stuff like that that people have. Under that is RNTBC, which is the registered native title body corporate. And then there's Aboriginal corporations, land trusts and ranges. So I think that a lot of people tend to just go towards ranges when they're looking about research work. And I think that's fine, but ranges aren't a community, you know, they're an aspect of it. And they're usually very busy because they're the working part of a community, you know. So I think ranges are fine, but I think in terms of doing research work, it's best to talk to the traditional owners as a community first, and then if you need to drill down, go like that, if it's possible. So like, if research work happened on Lama Lama country, you know, it'd probably go to the ranger group, or we would invite them to attend a land trust meeting or a corporation meeting, because they're held on the same day, so it doesn't matter for us. But yeah, I just think that you should think about other people other than rangers, because they're usually time poor people. So yeah, but any one of them people is good. So first contact, I think in terms of best way, you know, how's the best way to talk to traditional owners and make that first contact? Is it through an email? Is it through a telephone call? Is it actually going to the community and talking about it? You know, they're pretty much the first ways to do it. Talk about the research, you know, and there's a couple of things that you probably need to consider when you go to in the engagement planning phase, because you might have to think about finances, whether you pay traditional owners for their time to talk to you or not. You know, how long is your time frame, and then how much time is actually needed, you know. So I think research has a very set time frame, but sometimes that doesn't work in, particularly if there's things that can derail, like a engagement planning schedule, like sorry business and stuff like that. You know, communities won't want to talk to you even though you made a plane fare to go see them on such and such date, and they're not able to speak to you. So yeah, I believe community buddies are a really important thing. So like, if you wanted to talk to a particular community, then you should have a buddy person, you know. So if it was for me with Lama Lama, you know, because I look after sea country, most people are my buddies to do with sea country stuff, and then I would help you, show you the way to come into the community, you know. So it's a person who can broker that contact with the community. As I said before, there's sometimes you might have to do trade-offs with your research. You should know that traditional owners are all different, so different people in different places mean different things. And then have a plan B, because if you come to the community and the community says, nah, we don't like that, we don't want that here, what will you do? You know, because some people might say, we can do this, this, and this, and we're happy to do that. Or they might just say, nah, we're not interested at all. So, and I think it'd be hard pressed to come back to that community and do research if they've already told you no. You know, so what's your plan B? I just put this here so that you understand as researchers or people working with traditional owners that we have rights, you know, and that anything that you speak to us, you know, as researchers, you should protect when we're talking to you. And if you've taken things from us in terms of, you know, knowledge or, you know, if it's something that can be given to you or something like that, you know, you should protect us, you know, and not do something that will hurt that process and that rapport that we're building together, you know. So, yeah. So help protect us, please. This is also something that you should be aware of, you know, free, prior, informed consent. You know, we should be able to work with you and not be, you know, thinking that something's happened when, you know, you haven't disclosed everything that we should know about a particular subject. So, you know, if it impacts on the research that it's doing, you know, is to be done, you know, let us know every aspect of it. Don't keep things hidden from us, you know. And also, you know, because I feel like if we found out that somebody was holding something back from us and then we found out later on, then it'll be much worse. So it's best to be upfront. And I'd like to say that, you know, at the end of the day, people don't remember what's written on a piece of paper, but they remember what you've said to them, you know, and how you conducted yourself with us, you know. And then we could turn around and say, yeah, that Ed fella, you know, he didn't do the right thing by us, you know. And then Ed and everyone associated with Ed would be, you know, striked out with a white line. Do you know what I mean? So it's your word that binds you with Aboriginal people, not a piece of paper. So community visits. So some communities have permits that you need to get. We were at Nullarbor the other week and we had to get permits just to have a look around. So it's important that you follow the process. If you have a community body established, meet with them. If you're there to do the research and get traditional owner input, hold community meetings, you know, make sure you're talking to the right traditional owners about what you're talking about. You know, it's important to talk to the right people, because if you don't, then later on you'll run into problems when you go to publish something or anything like that, and then the right person comes up and says, no, you can't do that because you didn't speak to me and you didn't hear the right words for that country, you know. So it's important to find out who to talk to, and this might happen over a few visits or a few contact moments, you know. So they might say, oh yeah, talk to Ed, you know, and he'll be able to do it, but Ed's probably like the first person, and then it gets deeper and deeper as you go, and then eventually you'll probably talk to the right person for that country. Just remember there's cultural restrictions, restrictive areas, so there's places that you can't go to, like sacred sites and story places and stuff like that, so you shouldn't go, you know. And your buddy or anybody from the community will probably tell you that, you know. They'll say you can go here, here and here, but not there. And it's not up for you to ask why. You just listen and you get told. So yeah. I'll go into cultural restrictions just after this, but the only other community restrictions is usually alcohol. Some communities have alcohol restrictions that you can't drink there or bring alcohol in. So just be mindful of that. So the research engagement, I think, so everything I've talked about today is just a guide, you know. It's not the end all or be all of everything that has to happen, but these are the things that you should consider when you're engaging with traditional owners. You need to have clear lines of communication. You need to take into effect or into consideration TO's beliefs, their customs and how they want to be involved, you know. Finance, you know, that's about you know, if you have to pay TOs for their time or knowledge or something like that, you can do that. promise is a really big one. Do not promise what you cannot deliver, you know. So someone might ask you to do something and you say, oh, yeah. And knowing you can't do it, it's better to just say, I can't do that, you know. And no one's not going to be upset at that point. They'll be upset later on if you can't deliver. So be mindful of what you promise and be mindful of what you say. They're the two main things. So the other side of research engagement usually have training, maybe employment, you know, community development outcomes. You'll get cultural information. You might build the capacity of individuals or rangers, you know, and you're supporting local enterprise most of the time if you buy at the store and stuff like that. And keep your paperwork in order. So yeah, but there's heaps of things, like it could be endless. So the cultural restrictions I was talking about before, sometimes you're not able to speak to elders directly, and sometimes you won't be able to speak to a person who's the opposite gender of you. So as a female, I usually have problems speaking to senior lawmen and stuff like that, you know. So that's something that you can take into consideration. How you treat unmarried men and women needs to be thought about as well. In-laws don't speak. So if you're with a person who, say if it was me and my father-in-law was there, and we can be in the same room, but you know, I'd probably be sitting this way and he'd be sitting that way, but you could talk to him and you could talk to me, but you couldn't talk to both of us. Some places have skin groups, so you know, they don't talk to one another, and there's like protocols about that as well. Age referencing, yeah, basically, you know, talking to people age appropriately. Other ones, I would think more what people know about, you know, direct eye contact, some people don't like that. No-go areas. Clothing is a big one in communities. You know, if you're dressed with least amount of clothes, then you're going to be in trouble, you know. Most communities, you cover up your shoulders, you wear clothing to your knee or longer, you know. Most women wear skirts, you know, no crop tops, that kind of thing. So yeah, so clothing's a big one. And sometimes if you go somewhere and the old girls, like they particularly will say, go home and change yourself, come back later on. And it's pretty shaming for people, you know, for even me to see that happen to people. But, you know, I think people should know better as well, you know. So there's a time and place for not wearing clothes. That's usually at business, so yeah, but not in everyday life. So yeah. So post-engagement, I think the main thing is about, you know, do the traditional owner want to be co-authors and have co-ownership of things, you know, and ensuring that the draft report gets sent to them and they can have a look at it before it gets published. I think they're the main things. The others, I think are a common sense thing, but I think you really need to ensure that the draft report goes to the traditional owners and that their level of involvement is acknowledged. So if it was in a big way, then do it properly. And then the outputs. A lot of our mob like posters and videos and educational materials, but some can be like training, like the BRUVs and the participatory mapping, you know, their output sometimes. So yeah, building capacity of people. And I think a big one that's coming up now is the storage of data. You know, a lot of people don't want their data or information stored in an easy, accessible way, and it has to be maintained and kept for that process and not go on and on and on for different things. So yeah. So time is important. I think we've mentioned it a little bit, you know, but time frames need to be flexible. They need to be able to be adaptive to the things that are happening on community, you know, and you can't be really rigid about that. Engagement is a two-way process. Be mindful of cultural restrictions. We've talked about the buddy person, you know, so if you have a buddy, that's great. Be conscious of your language. And I didn't say it before, but non-verbal language is important to Indigenous people. So if you're saying something but your body language isn't backing it up, they'll pick up on it. We'll know that you're lying or something's not true, you know. You're not being totally truthful in what you're saying. And you might get called out on it. You know, they'll be saying, you know, Jeff, you're saying one thing but your body's saying something else, you know, what's going on here? Or they'll just say, nah, he's shady and I don't think we should work with him, you know. There's something wrong there, not with Jeff, but in that situation, you know. Yeah. So be conscious of non-verbal language as well. Traditional knowledge is important and should be acknowledged, and Indigenous people view their land and sea country through their cultural responsibility and obligations. So I did a talk for AMES earlier this year, and one of the things that we talked about was different comparisons between, I'll just say, white fellow culture and black fellow culture. You know, and I think these are the main things, you know, in white society, your individuality is supported, you know, you're encouraged to be the best individual that you can be. But in Aboriginal society, you know, you're considered part of a collective, so you need to act with the collective in mind, and so that everything that we do is for the betterment of the clan or for the group. Time's a big thing, like Murray time is different to other time, you know, so I'm from Queensland, so I can say that. But yeah, so it's not like time's measured differently, but there's difference important on time. So training. When I did this presentation, training was a big thing because, like, no, I lied to you. It's the next one, which is the occupation and inherent responsibility and obligations. So when you go to school, you know, you go to school, you hit 15 years of age when you're in grade 10, and then you kind of think about, what am I going to do for my work? You know, how my life going to be after in grade 11 and 12? So you pick subjects that'll help you for your later life, for your later working life. But Aboriginal people, you know, their training and their inherent responsibility and obligations start very early, you know. So what I'm talking about here is that, you know, training, as a researcher, you might be finishing all your training by about 25, you know. So you've worked possibly from when you're 17 to 25 to get your university education and whatnot. But in the Aboriginal world, your training starts when you're about 4 or 5, about looking after country, you know, being trained who's responsible for what, you know. And so by the time you're 20 years old, you've been training, well, 25, you've been training for 20 years. And then you get researchers who've come out and they're green, you know, they've had 7 years of training under their belt. Well done. So I wanted to say to you, training and being responsible and having obligations is very different in the Aboriginal world. You know, you're born into that role, you know, and you have to do that role because that's the expectations of your elders, you know. And if you bulk the system, they'll let you go a little bit away, but then they'll rep you back in, you know. So it's a different time frame, you know. So when you think about traditional owners and, you know, a research student goes, oh, I've been looking at this research for the last 5, 10 years, and we're like, oh, that's great. And you come to us now, and we've been looking at the same thing, say if it was sawfish, you know. Well, our people have been looking at sawfish for thousands of years. So it's different time frames and different things. So yeah, paperwork versus your word in the Aboriginal world It's what you say that binds you to us. And language, you know, in the Aboriginal world, English might be a third, fourth, fifth language. You know, it's not the first language for some people. So yeah, so I just wanted to highlight some of those comparisons. This is a big thing of mine, that traditional owners are not stakeholders. You know, we consider ourselves people who've been in a natural environment for thousands of years, you know, and then for the last 240 odd years, you know, we've become a stakeholder in our sea and land country. So we are not stakeholders. We're the people who have inherent rights and responsibilities to look after our land and our sea country, not a stakeholder. You know, and I think when you use the word stakeholders, it's a person that you may or may not want to talk to. But I'm here to say, if from nothing else from my talk today, you understand that we are not stakeholders, and you must come and speak to us about things that you want to do in our land and sea country. It's very important for that to happen. All right? Another thing is parachute signs. So I think, you know, people go, oh, I have this research that I want to do, and then you contact us and you say, oh yeah, can I meet you? And we're like, yeah, come. You come in, you're there for 5 minutes, and then you go again. And that's what I consider parachute signs. So I think don't be parachuters, you know, just drop and stay with us, develop a relationship, you know, spend time with us. So these are the lessons learned. You know, don't forget that traditional owners of the land and sea country. Take the time to build relationships. Sometimes you may get a warm welcome, sometimes you may not, but don't be discouraged. Some of research is offensive to traditional owners. Some research needs time to consult with us. We have inherent rights, interests, responsibilities and aspirations around our land and sea country. We hold knowledge and we have a greater understanding of what's happening in our patch. We are not stakeholders. Please acknowledge us for our contribution to anything that you've done in collaboration with us. Don't be a parachuter. Learn the differences between traditional owner groups if you can. Collaborations are usually mutually beneficial, you know. We want research, white fellow research, to back up what we are saying about our own country. You know, so that's really important to us. Great exchange of knowledge transfer, it improves our science. So that's working together. Thank you.